Welcome! In this explainer, we're going to break down standards-based assessment. This is the framework that really shapes how students are taught and tested all over the world, from your local school right up to international universities.
So here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the basics, what standards even are. Then we'll see how they're used globally. After that, we'll dive into how they're assessed, the real-world consequences of it all, and some of the powerful critiques that question the whole system.
All right, let's start at square one. What exactly are we talking about when we say standards in education?
To put it simply, standards, or 标准, are just carefully defined goals. You can think of them as benchmarks that clearly spell out what a student should know and be able to do at a certain point in their education. Now, here's the crucial part. These standards aren't just ideas on a piece of paper. They're meant to be the glue that connects the curriculum, how teachers instruct, and how students are assessed. The whole idea is to make sure what's taught in the classroom is directly linked to what's measured on the test. And this standards-based approach, it's not just a local trend. It has become a global phenomenon. Let's take a look at how it's being used in some major educational systems around the world.
I mean, this is a truly global movement. You've got China's State Education Commission setting these sweeping national standards. England established its national curriculum way back in 1988. Japan uses its course of study to guide everything. And the CEFR provides a common framework for language education all across Europe.
So how in the world are these standards actually designed, especially for something as complex and nuanced as learning a whole new language? This is a perfect example of how it's done. You start with a big, broad goal, right? Like using English in social settings. That's great, but it's vague. So you distill that down into something specific and measurable, like students will use English to participate in social interactions. You turn the abstract idea into a clear benchmark for teaching and for testing.
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of it all, standards-based assessment, or đánh giá dựa trên tiêu chuẩn.
The key thing to understand here is that this is not about ranking students against each other. The main purpose is to measure one thing. Has a student actually achieved the specific skills that were laid out in the standards from day one?
And the whole process follows a really logical flow. It's pretty straightforward. First, you clearly define the standards. Then you design assessments specifically to measure those exact standards. And finally, you evaluate a student's performance against that benchmark to see if they've hit the mark. Simple as that.
As you can probably guess, an approach this structured has some pretty big consequences. And they're often conflicting. It's really a two-sided coin. On one side, you've got practicality and reliability. These tests are useful tools for big institutions making huge decisions. Like university admissions, that's what we call the gatekeeping function. But the flip side, as a lot of research shows, is that this can lead to a narrowed curriculum. The focus can shift to just teaching the test, which creates this intense pressure cooker environment for schools and students alike.
And because these tests often act as those gatekeepers, controlling who gets into college or gets a certain job, they become known as high-stakes tests, or 百题关场. The results really do carry a lot of weight for a person's future.
That high-stakes nature brings us to our final section. This is where we get into the deeper, ethical questions about the immense power these tests actually hold. This is the one question that's at the center of a field called critical language testing. It really challenges the whole idea that these tests are neutral, unbiased tools for measurement. For decades now, researchers like Alana Shoemi have been arguing that large-scale testing is never a neutral thing. She calls tests powerful agents of cultural, social, and political agendas that have a profound impact on the lives of everyone involved. So, if you look at it from this critical perspective, tests aren't just neutral scorecards. They're seen as powerful tools that can enforce control, boil down complex knowledge into simple right or wrong answers, and promote a version of common knowledge that might not be universal at all, potentially creating biases that harm certain groups of students. And, this is not a new debate. This quote from Medina and Neal is from over 30 years ago. It's a pretty stark reminder of the long-standing concerns about the human cost of this system. It really makes you pause and ask, in our quest for standards, what's the ultimate price we're willing to pay? This video is brought to you by the IELTS Focus Salo 08477705973, an English center specializing in IELTS preparation.